The morning fog clings to the hills of Thessaly. You feel the damp earth beneath your sandals, the air heavy with the scent of sweat and iron. In the distance, the Macedonian phalanx advances, shields locked, spears bristling like a forest of bronze. For centuries, this wall of men have been Greece's pride, its armor against the world. But pride can turn brittle, and on this day, in 197 BCE, the unbreakable began to break. Philip V rides behind his line, convinced that the tradition of his fathers will hold. Yet the ground betrays him. The slopes twist the perfect order of his soldiers. A wall built on geometry collapses when the earth itself shifts. Have you ever trusted something so deeply, only to watch it fail in your hands? Pause. Listen. The crash of shields, the desperate shouts of men trapped in rigid squares, the sudden silence when Roman maniples dart like predators through the gaps. Polybius would later write that it was not strength but adaptability that won the day. And here lies the paradox. Discipline became a prison, while freedom of movement became a weapon. Imagine the faces of those soldiers, eyes wide, breaths short, realizing that their formation, the pride of Alexander's heirs, was now their coffin. The question hangs over the field like smoke. Did Rome truly defeat Macedonia, or did Macedonia defeat itself? But this is only the first crack in the statue. For from the ruins of this defeat rises a shadow, a son, Perseus, who carries his father's failure like a curse carved into his name. He believes he can restore the glory of Greece. Yet how can a man fight an empire if he is already at war with his own blood? This is not just the story of battles. It is the story of a civilization unraveling. Conquerors who once ruled from Egypt to India reduced to pawns, moved at Rome's pleasure. The cruel irony? The land that gave Rome its philosophy would be forced to learn obedience from its legions. And so we ask, was it Roman steel that doomed Greece, or Greek pride that sharpened the blade? What Rome exploited next was not strength, but weakness. And Perseus, chained to his father's ghost, would soon discover the cost of defiance. The dust of Cynoscephalae had barely settled when a deeper truth emerged. Rome did not simply defeat Greece. It exposed its fractures. What Rome exploited was not Macedon's weakness on that hill, but Greece's weakness within itself. The Antigonid phalanx, once the terror of the Mediterranean, had been a machine of iron. Yet Philip V's defeat revealed its greatest flaw. Machines cannot adapt. Imagine standing shoulder to shoulder in that wall of shields, bound by discipline, unable to move freely. What once made you strong now makes you helpless. Is loyalty still a virtue if it chains you to destruction? Pause. Polybius writes that Roman maniples acted like living organisms, breathing, shifting, reacting. The phalanx, in contrast, was like a statue, beautiful, impressive, but immovable. And statues, no matter how glorious, can always be broken. But the battlefield was only the beginning of humiliation. The Achaean League, the last fragile coalition of Greek cities, soon tore itself apart. Allies betrayed allies, cities turned on neighbors, and rivalries older than Rome itself resurfaced. Injustice did not come only from foreign conquest. It came from Greek hands spilling Greek blood. Have you ever watched a family quarrel until outsiders moved in to claim the house? That was Greece's tragedy. Few people know this. At times, Greek cities called upon Rome for protection, inviting the wolf to guard the sheep. Rome never refused. Each treaty signed in Latin was a chain, invisible but unbreakable. This was no conquest of swords, but of signatures. And yet, in the shadow of Philip's defeat, a new figure rose, Perseus, his son. He gathered armies, forged alliances, and promised to restore Macedonian dignity. But he carried more than weapons. He carried the ghost of Cynoscephalae, the shame of his father's failure, etched into every decision he made. Could Perseus truly fight Rome? Or was he always fighting his father's shadow? The story circles back. Once, Greece had been the conqueror. Now, Its kings played the role of pawns on Rome's board. And Perseus, last gambler of Macedon, was about to stake not only his kingdom, but the memory of Greece itself. His defiance would lead to Pydna, where a kingdom's fate would be sealed. But long before that battle, Perseus would discover the weight of inheriting a broken crown. Perseus inherited more than a crown. He inherited a curse, the shadow of Cynoscephalae. From a moment he sat on the throne, he was not just a king, but the son of a man defeated. That weight shaped every choice, every glance, every sleepless night. Greek monarchs of the Hellenistic age called themselves heirs of Alexander. But instead of glory, their courts became cages of paranoia. Assassinations whispered in the dark, brothers poisoned at feasts, mothers plotting against sons. Plutarch describes entire dynasties hollowed by mistrust. Authority was not strength. It was fear sharpened into a crown. And what use is a crown if you cannot trust the hands that serve you? Pause. Consider the paradox. Kings commanded armies of tens of thousands, yet trembled before their own courtiers. Soldiers died in the dust, while monarchs drank wine in golden halls, their laughter a mask for suspicion. Can an army endure if its king no longer bleeds with it? Here lies a detail rarely told. Inscriptions from Pergamon mention soldiers begging for delayed pay, even as royal banquets overflowed with luxuries. The fracture was not only military, it was moral. A kingdom can survive defeat in battle. It cannot survive when its rulers stop believing in sacrifice. And while kings feasted, Rome watched, patient, calculating. The Senate understood what Greek monarchs refused to see. The deadliest enemy of Greece was not the legion. It was ego. Like Icarus, these rulers flew too high on wings of memory, chasing Alexander's shadow. The higher they rose, the more certain their fall. Polybius, again, is merciless. They lost not to arms, but to their own folly. The silent killer of Greece was prestige, the obsession with appearing powerful long after true power had crumbled. Tell me, haven't we seen this pattern before? Leaders blinded by vanity, risking survival for the illusion of glory? The circle closes. The mind of a king collapses faster than a phalanx. And Perseus himself, haunted by pride, yet desperate for redemption, was no exception. His defiance would not save Macedon. It would ignite the very fire Rome was waiting to unleash. Rome's strategy of divide and rule was about to turn Greek pride into chains. And Perseus, torn between legacy and survival, would soon face the choice no son should bear: honor his father's ghost or betray it. Perseus carried his father's ghost into battle, but Rome carried something deadlier: patience. The legions did not need to strike all of Greece at once. Instead, the Senate played a longer game, presenting itself not as conqueror, but as protector. "We are here only to defend your freedom," they said. But freedom written by your enemy's hand is no freedom at all. Polybius observed that Rome's strength lay not merely in steel, but in policy. One treaty at a time, one city at a time, the wolf entered the fold. Corinth feared Sparta. Sparta distrusted Athens. Athens envied Macedon. And so, Greek cities invited Rome into their quarrels. The dilemma is timeless. Do you accept the help of a powerful ally, knowing it will one day become your master? Pause. Imagine the Senate in session. Men in white togas debating not whether to conquer, but how to appear as liberators. Livy records moments where bribes were offered, rebellions funded, and peace dictated with subtle cruelty. Rome did not need to break walls, it simply bought the keys. Here lies a rare detail. When Thebes pleaded for Roman protection, senators divided the city into friends of Rome and enemies of Rome. A city once united by stone walls was now divided by parchment. Few realized this. Every promise of Roman friendship carried a hidden dagger. The paradox is cutting. Greeks taught Rome philosophy, art, and politics. Yet Rome returned the favor by teaching them obedience. By the time Corinth was burned in 146 BCE, the war was already over. The flames only revealed the corpse. Plutarch mourns that the land of Homer became a stage where others directed the play. The actors were still Greek, but the script was Roman. And haven't we seen this before? Nations celebrated for culture, but powerless in politics? The circle tightens. Rome's chains were not forged in iron, but in words. And those words proved stronger than spears. Greece, once master of empires, became its own jailer by trusting treaties that smelled of olive oil but dripped with blood. Corinth's ashes marked more than a city's fall. They marked the funeral of an entire age. And for the last Greeks who watched those flames, the question was unbearable. Had they betrayed Rome or themselves? The fire devoured Corinth, as if the gods themselves had turned their faces away. Imagine standing in those streets, stone cracking under the heat, the scent of burning papyrus filling the air, statues of heroes melting into faceless shadows. What was once a city of marble and philosophy became a pyre for all of Greece. Pause. What is worse, to be conquered by another, or to realize you betrayed yourself first? Long before the flames, Greece had already fractured. The phalanx had broken at Cynoscephalae. Kings drowned in their own paranoia. Cities signed treaties that chained them tighter than any manacle. Rome's legions only finished the work Greece had begun against itself. Polybius, a Greek forced to live as a hostage in Rome, confessed the bitter truth. They were undone not by Roman arms, but by their own folly. Imagine writing those words, knowing they would outlive your people. The conqueror did not silence Greek voices. Greece silenced itself with pride and jealousy. And yet, here lies the cruel paradox. Rome carried Greek captives back to Italy, but also Greek teachers, Greek philosophers, Greek artists. The body of Greece burned, but its soul was carried across the sea. Haven't we seen this before? Nations whose armies fall, but whose culture conquers the very victors. A silent kind of immortality paid for with fire. The circle closes where it began. At Cynoscephalae, pride turned strength into weakness. At Corinth, pride turned beauty into ash. And the question Greece left us is the same we must ask today. Do civilizations die by the swords of their enemies or by the weight of their own pride? The fall of Greece was only the prologue to Rome's empire, which would soon rise on its ashes. But for us, the echo lingers. Are we building legions of adaptability or phalanxes of pride that may one day betray us?